My name is Dave Smith. I'm a 28-year-old company employee. I work for a construction-related company. I joined my current company right after graduating from high school, so my career has already been 10 years. However, perhaps because I've been so engrossed in my work, these 10 years have passed in the blink of an eye. I love my job because I have a dream that I want to fulfill through my work. My dream is to become a top-notch architect and to build a house for my own family. I love my family as much as my job, maybe more than that. My parents, younger brother, and sister, our family of 5, have always supported each other through thick and thin. That's why I've always wanted to build a dream home where they can live comfortably and relax. My childhood home was, to put it bluntly, very poor. The 5 of us lived in a small and run-down apartment, squeezing ourselves into a 2-bedroom layout. Because of such living conditions, I never had my own room even as I grew older, and I was never given my own desk. In that house, you could always see someone else no matter where you looked. That's how I grew up. Moreover, the poverty was quite severe. We never had our water supply cut off, but there were times when the electricity was cut due to unpaid bills, and even the gas supply would frequently stop. Not being able to use hot water for a shower in the dead of winter was, looking back, hellish. Despite all this, our home was always filled with laughter. Both my parents believed that if you're poor, you should still try to live happily, and they made even the smallest meals a source of joy. So, I never resented my family for our poverty. On the contrary, I'm grateful to my parents, who raised us in such circumstances. The reason our family was poor was primarily because my dad had a pre-existing health condition, which made it difficult for him to work long hours. Due to his chronic illness, he often struggled to work throughout the day and repeatedly had to quit his jobs due to illness. As a result, he couldn't secure a stable job. So, my mom worked instead. She was the opposite of my father, having a healthy and robust body, and she believed if someone can work, they should. There's no reason why only fathers should work. She was the kind of person who could openly declare that she would work and earn a living in place of my dad. However, our family consisted of 3 children, with me being the oldest. My mom always seemed to be juggling childcare, household chores, and work, playing multiple roles from morning till night. Moreover, my mom frequently had to care for my dad due to his illness, so she couldn't become a regular employee. She couldn't predict when my dad would fall ill, and her work schedule had to be flexible to accommodate his health. Furthermore, my dad's medical expenses were shockingly high. Because of all this, we never had enough money at home. Nevertheless, my mom never complained and, in fact, encouraged our family while working 3 part-time jobs to support the household and take care of my dad. So, we've always felt that we could never repay our mom enough. Thanks to her, I never felt any resentment towards my family, even though we were poor, and my dad was often ill. However, I often thought that if we had a slightly larger house, if we had just one more room where Dad could rest comfortably, he would probably be able to recover more easily. After all, right now, He's sleeping on a mattress next to where everyone eats so he can sleep peacefully. If my sister had a room where she could focus on her studies, she loves books so much, and I want to support her studies more. I always had these farts. Then, one day, by sheer coincidence, I discovered the profession of an architect, and in that moment, I can confidently say that my life changed. It happened while I was waiting for my friends in the high school library, casually flipping through a book that happened to catch my eye. I truly stumbled upon that book. Its title was something like The Work of Architects, and it was a collection of photographs of houses designed by famous architects from around the world. For me, who had never visited anyone else's home and only known my own, the content of that book was mind-blowing. What? This is just the entrance is as big as my whole house, isn't it? There are 2 sinks in the bathroom. The walk-in closet is practically a room in itself. On every page, there was a world I had never seen before, stretching out before me. Every page I turned filled me with amazement. Each one featured layouts, furnishings, and rooms I had never seen before. And there were interviews with the architects who designed those homes. Their comments about designing homes where everyone could live with a smile, creating houses where families naturally came together, and making homes as comfortable as hotels, captivated me. Suddenly, I found myself wanting to create such homes. I wanted to build a spacious and comfortable home for my family. This was the moment I decided to become an architect. I grabbed one of my teachers and bombarded them with questions. I want to become someone who builds big houses. How can I do it? Up until then, I had been a fairly laid-back person, so I think my sudden declaration of my dreams for the future surprised my teachers. Still, they kindly listened to me and offered advice. There were various professions related to home construction, including those who design houses, those who actually build them, and those who sell them. Moreover, I decided to become a person who designs. An architect. To become an architect, the most straightforward and powerful path was to attend a college and major in architecture. Upon graduation, I would obtain the qualifications to take the necessary exams. However, there was a problem. I couldn't afford to attend college. Our family's finances were always in a state of emergency, and at that time, they were particularly dire. My dad's illness had worsened, leading to long hospital stays, and we received shockingly high medical bills every month. Moreover, I had younger sister and brother. My sister was quiet but excelled in her studies, so I wanted to send her to college if possible. My brother was talented in sports, so I wanted to continue supporting his soccer pursuits. Even though we already had financial difficulties, my younger siblings would require even more financial support in the future. In this already financially strained situation, I couldn't possibly say that I wanted to go to college when I had no exceptional talents. Therefore, I decided to start working immediately after high school. However, my mom seemed to have noticed my interest in architecture, even though I secretly read architecture magazines.
Dave, don't you really want to go to college?
What?
You know, I can still take on more part-time jobs. And you can also borrow a scholarship. If you want to go to college, you can.
She said that to me, but I shook my head at my mom's words. It's okay. I can achieve my dream even while working. Afterward, my mom encouraged me to go to college several times, but I firmly declined the idea of going to college. The company I joined was a mid-sized general contractor. Originally, they didn't hire high school graduates as new employees, but my high school teacher, who knew about my dream, went out of their way to visit the company and asked them to hire me.
You have found a dream you want to pursue? It's no big deal to go and ask for it.
The teacher said, smiling, and then added with a serious expression,
You can become an architect without going to college. Work at this company for at least 10 years. Gain practical experience, and you'll qualify for the licensing exam. In the meantime, study harder about construction and architecture than anyone else. You can do it, so give it your all.
Even though the teacher wasn't my homeroom teacher, they encouraged me like that. They might have known about my family situation and felt sympathy, but I believed in their words and vowed to work hard to build my dream home someday. I was initially assigned to work on site, which is often referred to as the construction site in our industry. At the company's entrance ceremony, my fellow college graduated employees were all assigned to work at the headquarters. I, a high school graduate, was the only one sent to the construction site. I thought that once I started working at the company, I would wear a suit, use a computer, and do office work. But my expectations were immediately shattered. Instead of a suit, I wore work clothes, and I had to carry heavy materials, perform security duties, and even run errands for my bosses. It was a completely different job from what I had imagined. Every day, I would finish work drenched in sweat, and my work clothes would be covered in dirt. Riding the commuter train among people in suits while looking like that was tough. Even for someone like me, you didn't pay much attention to details. Furthermore, since I didn't know much, I was scolded by my bosses frequently, and there were countless times when I had to grit my teeth and hold back tears.
Hey Dave, what are you doing? You'll ruin it if you put the materials there. Use your head a bit.
Dave, move all these iron pipes over there. You'll skip lunch until you're done.
Even though they said unreasonable things, I worked desperately and endured it. I could persevere because I had my family waiting for me at home. I worked hard, with the sole goal of someday giving my family a big house as a present. As time passed, my attitude seemed to be recognized, and my bosses started teaching me the tricks of the trade. It seemed that the fact that I was working for my family had also become known.
Hey Dave, it's payday today, so you can leave early. Take your paycheck to your family quickly.
Thank you.
Dave, there's a boxed lunch as a treat today. Any leftovers are yours. Eat it yourself or take it home. Do as you like.
Really, thank you very much. They started showing consideration for me like that. Even though my family was still struggling despite my earnings, my dad's condition had stabilized a bit. My sister was able to aim for college, and my younger brother became a high school student. Despite being pushed hard every day at work on the construction site, I was able to persevere because I had great bosses, a beloved family, and a dream. After spending 3 years on the construction site, building a solid foundation, I was transferred to the company's headquarters. My bosses on the construction site were genuinely happy about my transfer.
Even if you have an office job wearing a suit, don't forget what you've learned here. Architecture can't exist without a job like we do. Remember that our work on site is essential for design and sales.
Understood. Thank you so much. I was then assigned to the sales department, but on the first day, I felt like I was in a completely different world. I had no idea about so many things, from answering phones to greeting people, especially struggling with the use of polite language. Even though I used polite language with my bosses, I had been getting by with a simple, yup, for the most part. However, in a job where I had to wear a suit, no one said, yup. I was completely bewildered by the sudden shift from manual labor to mostly sitting at a computer job. Moreover, everyone around me was a college graduate, and it seemed like they would never do field work in their lives. Some of my colleagues already held qualified architect licenses, and I didn't even have the qualifications to take the exam yet. I couldn't help but feel a sense of frustration. If only I had been able to go to college. Despite the inevitability of the situation, I sometimes felt a sense of injustice about the detour I had to take, and I couldn't help but envy my college-educated colleagues. Still, driven by the determination to achieve my dream, I clenched my teeth and persevered. One day, as I was leaving home to go to work, I found a letter in the mailbox. I usually didn't pay much attention to mail, but this one was sticking out about halfway, so I picked it up out of curiosity. It was an anonymous letter. Feeling suspicious, I opened the letter, and it contained a mysterious message. Dave Smith, your dream is drawing near. I read the letter multiple times, trying to understand its meaning. However, no matter how much I thought about it, I couldn't fathom who sent the letter or what dream it was referring to. Nevertheless, thanks to that letter, a small glimmer of hope sprouted in my heart. From that day on, I began to look forward to going to work. Thanks to the letter, for some inexplicable reason, I felt like I was genuinely making progress toward my dream. Without any evidence, I began to believe that, and my feelings of self-pity naturally faded away. Gradually, conversations with my colleagues at work also became enjoyable.
Dave, have you had something good happen recently? You seem to be in high spirits.
Well, you see, I received a mysterious letter. It inspired me to work hard toward my dream.
A mysterious letter? That sounds interesting. Maybe something amazing is about to happen.
I hope so. I don't even know who sent it. It would be nice if there were some clues. When I talked about the letter, my colleagues naturally shared their own dreams and hopes. As we discussed each other's dreams and hopes, we naturally grew closer. I started to look forward to talking about our dreams. Encouraged by the cryptic words in the letter, I felt that I needed to take the necessary steps to make my dream come true. Until then, my life had been all about exhausting work and coming home to sleep. But now, during the day, I work at this company, and at night, I devote myself to studying to become an architect. My colleagues supported me in my efforts.
Dave, if there's anything you don't understand, just ask.
Sure, thanks. I wanted to ask you about this page. Balancing work and late-night studying was sometimes tiring, and I would get sleepy. However, the words in the letter gave me strength. Several years later, I finally passed the second-class architect exam. At that moment, I felt that everything was worthwhile. I did it. My next goal was to become a first-class architect. After obtaining the qualification, I was transferred to the design department. Although I had to learn many things from scratch, I gradually began to participate in design work. My colleagues were kind-hearted people, most of whom held architect licenses, and some even had first-class architect licenses. Conversations with my colleagues became enjoyable.
Dave, are you aiming for a first-class architect license next?
Yes, I am. At this point, I'm determined to obtain it.
I have a feeling you can do it. Dave, we're here to support you, so keep up the good work.
From then on, I continued to work and study diligently, all for the sake of my family. My mom, who worked from morning to night, even past the age of 60. My dad, who lived brightly despite recurring illness. And my dear sister and younger brother. And there was one more family member, my wife, Emily. I married Emily shortly after being transferred to the design department. Emily and I had been in a relationship since our days, working on construction site together. She had a cheerful and kind personality, and she had always supported me.
Working in a suit isn't impressive at all. Dave, who works hard, is really cool.
I never had the luxury of living on my own and had always lived with my family. But Emily understood my family and my home environment.
It's not easy to start working for your family right after high school. Education doesn't matter, and you are a wonderful person.
Saying that, Emily came to my small apartment to fold laundry and take care of my dad when my mom couldn't due to work commitments. And when I passed the second-class architect exam, she said, "Congratulations. Next is first class, right? I want to help in any way I can to make your dream come true." And married me. I'm so lucky to be able to marry such an amazing woman. As I savored this joy, something even more surprising happened. It turns out the room that Emily found for our new home was right next to my family's place. The apartment had deteriorated over the years, so we were able to rent it immediately.
You don't have to be extravagant just because we're newlyweds. Besides, this way, your family is nearby, and it's reassuring.
Emily quickly became close to my family, and my younger sister and brother were very fond of her, treating her like a real sister. I had a wonderful family, a fulfilling job, and I was truly a fortunate man. But there was one thing I was not fortunate with. It was my boss. Manager Brown from the design department had been unusually harsh on me from the beginning. Now that I think about it, when I was assigned to the department, hey, what's HR thinking? A high school graduate like him won't be of any use. Brown, with a belief that educational background was everything, appeared to truly look down on me for being a high school graduate. One day, he was visibly frustrated due to some issue that didn't go his way. Suddenly, he noticed my presence and approached me with a sly grin.
Dave, I hear you have experience in construction sites. Maybe that's more suitable for you as a high school graduate. Being an architect requires a good educational background. You know, I doubt you can handle that job in the first place.
Then, As if a thought had just occurred to him, he continued,
Well, let's give it a try. I'll add you to the new project's design team. I'll give you a chance to improve your skills, so give it your best shot.
I felt grateful for his words and overlooked his previous behavior. But it seemed that he was enjoying this situation maliciously. This project was a big one. Even Brown himself was involved, and it was like staking the company's future on it. Finally, being part of the project filled me with excitement, and I hurried home to report to Emily. I finally earned their recognition as a capable individual. Emily was genuinely happy for me, responding,
Congratulations. Do your best.
However, my joy was about to be brutally shattered. The tasks assigned to me in this team were nothing but menial jobs. I had to copy documents for meetings, arrange tea and lunch, and even coordinate transportation. I had believed that I was taking a step towards a new path, but it seemed that Brown had no such intention. During meetings where representatives from other companies were also present, Brown would deliberately point out my mistakes, verbally abuse me, and narrow his eyes while laughing. I had to swallow my pride and hold back tears on multiple occasions.
Hey, Dave, there's a missing page in this document. Can a high school graduate even make proper copies? Who wants to eat fried food during a meeting? Think about the attendees' preferences. Even a high school graduate has a brain, right?
The materials Brown had given me beforehand were missing a page from the start, and it was Chief Brown himself who had instructed me to order the special fried food lunch. But I knew that if I pointed even more, so I had no choice but to keep the truth to myself and swallow my frustration. But there was one person who listened to my grievances. That person was my wife, Emily. Emily had a nurturing aura about her, and every night I would share the events of my day at work with her.
Dave, you sound just like an elementary school student.
She would say, chuckling. However, she always listened attentively to my stories. Perhaps I was drawn to Emily's motherly qualities. During my own childhood, my mom was often absent due to work, leaving me with no one to talk to about my daily experiences. So, I may have been seeking comfort in Emily's presence. That manager, he asked for a lunch with lots of fried items to boost his energy. But when I opened the lunchbox in front of everyone, he completely dismissed the lunch I ordered.
That's really mean. But I'm sure he's just jealous of your talent. Keep working hard, and you'll show him.
Her words gave me the motivation to persevere. However, his harassment only intensified as time went on. Then, one day, a major incident occurred. It was the day of a crucial project meeting at our company. Representatives from other companies participating in the project were gathering, making it a hectic morning. I was still in my role as an errand boy, busy setting up the meeting room, preparing documents, and handling various small tasks. Despite the already busy schedule, Brown suddenly decided to change some of the documents at the last minute, creating even more chaos. After finally finishing the preparations and waiting for the team members to arrive, I noticed something unusual. The paper bag I had brought with me had mysteriously disappeared. I distinctly remembered bringing it and placing it on my desk that morning. I searched the area around my desk and checked my colleagues' desks, but it was nowhere to be found. Moreover, the bag contained something precious, and I had no reason to leave it on the floor or put it on someone else's desk. I turned to a nearby colleague and asked, "Hey, have you seen the paper bag I had on my desk?"
Yeah, I think I saw Brown take it earlier.
"What? Brown? Why would he do that?"
I'm not sure, but I saw him rummaging through the bag. Then he just took it with him.
I had a bad feeling about this. I rushed to find Brown and asked him about the paper bag. "Manager, I need to ask you about something." He replied with words I could have never predicted.
Oh, that paper bag. I saw that you held it carefully against your chest with both hands, so I thought I'd check its contents as your superior.
Even though he was my superior, I couldn't believe he had the right to touch someone else's belongings without permission.
So, I saw this really dull-colored thing that looked like trash. When I took it out, it turned out to be a hand-knit sweater.
Yay, what I had brought that day was a sweater that my wife, Emily, had knitted.
But you see, it was so poorly made and looked ugly, so I threw it away. Sorry.
When I heard that, I was left in shock. Emily had spent a whole year knitting that masterpiece. I couldn't help but mutter, "You're in big trouble now."
What?
At that moment, someone walked into the room.
Hey, there was this paper bag thrown in the outside trash, and I wonder what this is all about.
Carrying the paper bag I had brought, the person said so with a stern expression.
Oh, President.
That's right. The person who had entered was Mr. Bloom, the president of our company. The president continued to inquire in a stern tone,
Who in the world threw away this paper bag?
It seemed that there was some connection between that paper bag and him, and Brown also seemed to have noticed. Brown stumbled over his words for a moment. But since everyone in the room had witnessed the exchange between me and him, he couldn't really claim ignorance. With a forced smile,
Well, this paper bag was the one Smith brought here. When I checked inside, it looked like some kind of sweater. But the stitches were all messed up and it was ugly. So I went ahead and threw it away.
seeing Brown, who was grinning and explaining like that, the president's expression became even more severe.
So, in other words, you threw someone else's belongings away without even informing.
Well, you see, it was for the sake of the company.
For the sake of the company.
Yes, you see, wearing such an ugly and tasteless sweater at the company would undermine our company's dignity.
Then, the president said with a stern tone,
I apologize for having a bad taste.
with a puzzled expression, Brown looked up at the president, who was staring at him intensely.
This is a sweater that my niece knitted for me. I don't think it's your place to criticize it.
Your niece? But why did Smith have it?
I looked straight at Brown and said, because she's my wife.
What?
The truth is, Emily is the daughter of the president's younger brother. Her real parents passed away in an accident when she was still very young. So, the president practically raised Emily as his own. However, the president himself had 3 children, which made life not particularly enjoyable for Emily. Despite the wealth, Emily had a tough time growing up, always feeling like she had to be careful and not overstep. growing up without her biological parents and not knowing what it's like to have a family, made her truly appreciate our family when she became a part of it. Over time, she developed a deep sense of gratitude towards him for being her guardian. As a way to express her gratitude, Emily worked tirelessly on knitting a sweater. She even called him directly yesterday to convey her feelings.
I know it's not very well made, but I knitted a sweater for you. Uncle, you've always had problems with the cold, so I wanted to help keep you warm.
I could hear President's voice cracking with emotion as he repeatedly said thank you over the phone. Both Emily and I were in tears. However, against all odds, that sweater ended up being discarded by Brown. The President's voice was filled with utmost anger as he continued.
I'm not angry because it's a gift from my niece. I'm upset because there's someone in this company who would do something as despicable as throwing away someone else's belongings. In other words, you can understand what I mean, right?
What do you mean?
The President turned away from Brown without saying anything and faced me.
I thought I had been keeping an eye on you, but I see that you've been treated terribly. I'm sorry for not noticing until now.
I tried to stop the President from apologizing suddenly. No, please don't apologize. I have my own way of dealing with this, and I want to show Manager Brown that I can handle it. The President seemed momentarily surprised, but he must have heard from Emily that I was aiming to become a first-class architect. He smiled right away.
You're right. I've heard good things about you from the site supervisor, and I believe in you.
The President placed his hand on my shoulder and said it with conviction. Then, he turned back to Brown and delivered a stern message.
I underestimated you. I'll decide on the future in the next few days.
Brown was still in a daze.
Yes.
In the end, during the project meeting that day, Brown remained in a dazed state throughout. No matter what question he was asked, he could only respond with, "What? Oh, His responses only served to frustrate his interlocutors. In the midst of it all, I was able to provide clear answers to all the questions in place of him. Even though I had only been doing odd jobs for the project, I had secretly been studying all the materials and researching the ones I thought were necessary. I was more knowledgeable about the content than anyone else. It seemed that the President had been watching me from the shadows. At the end of that day's meeting, I was called in by the President and received unexpected words.
You have potential. You should be more involved in this project. Starting tomorrow, you'll take over as the leader in place of Director Brown.
Then the President added,
Please convey my thanks for the sweater to Emily. And by the way, you've found yourself a good wife.
From the next day, I got involved in the project as the leader, and we managed to complete the building in 1 year. I was worried if my sudden appointment as leader would be accepted by my colleagues, but it seemed like everyone had been observing my efforts all along.
Dave, you can do it. We'll support you properly. So give it your best.
Work became hectic all of a sudden, but thanks to my continued studies at night, I managed to pass the Architect First Class examination. At that time, Emily smiled and told me,
It turned out just as the letter said. I was the one who sent it.
Shortly after that incident, Brown was transferred to the site where I was working. However, Brown, who had never worked in anything other than a suit, apparently couldn't adapt. He resigned, and nobody knew what happened to him afterward. Finally, with a little more free time on my hands, I'm working towards realizing my dream. It's a building home for my family. Once the house is completed, we can start a new life in a new place. I'm excited about creating a new place to protect my family's happiness.